Hello and welcome back to A Boring Revolution, your number one news source for everything in regards to the Boring Company and Elon Musk. I'm back with another episode. I'm back on with my mega projects episode list, and I've got a really cracking project. It's been in the news recently. It's getting a bit of press, and I thought, you know what? This is the perfect project for the Boring Company. It plays to all our strengths. We can get it done for a lot less than what is being proposed, and we can do a better job of it. So let me give you a nice little overview of this particular project in question. So, UK mega project. Now, where in the UK do we need tunnels? Do we need tunnels on the mainland, or do we need tunnels in some other part of the United Kingdom? And based on what I've been reading recently, there is a definite need for tunnels linking the islands of Guernsey, Sark and Guernsey to the mainland of France in Europe, and this project has been recently proposed. A lot of people are talking about building an airport, building a network of bridges. This can be done a lot cheaper and a lot more effectively using boring tunnels. We have the perfect system for this, and hopefully we'll have Limestorm and Proof Rock up and running in the next 2 to 3 years. Thus, we can probably do this project in under 3 years, maybe under 2 years if we have enough machines. But let me tell you what we're going to be doing. So the grand project is being considered to link the islands of Guernsey, Sark and Guernsey to France via a tunnel or bridge. So we're looking at a tunnel, It's been given the project code name of Connect 3 million. I presume that's because they're connecting to 3 million potential residents in France and Jersey. This is exactly the sort of project the Boring Company should be tendering for. It's a good side project, not too big. It's linking up areas that require tunnels. There's going to be a lot of throughput through those tunnels, both passengers and potentially freight as well. Not a great deal of freight, but certainly enough to add a certain amount of money to the coffers of the Boring Company if they end up owning and operating this tunnel. So it is definitely got some potential for profit making in this tunnel in the long term. Businessmen Martin Dorey and Kevin Keane are active in securing funding. They are big time financial players on the island of Guernsey and Guernsey. They have a lot of sway around the world. These are people that are well known throughout North America, Europe, China, Japan, South America. They do business deals all over the world, and thus, if they can't get financing, I very much doubt anyone else can get financing. And plus, they know the islands very, very well because they've lived there for pretty much all their lives. This is no pipe dream. It's going to happen. I really think it's going to happen because there's been so much press speculation here in the UK. Quite a few articles written about this, and it's been on ITV as well. So I believe they can definitely make it happen. So where exactly is Guernsey, Sark and Jersey? They are down here south of England, about 100 miles from Weymouth in a straight line, which is just there in the middle of the screen, Weymouth. And France is here to the northeast of the islands, or east of the islands. Not a million miles away from England, not really a million miles away from France, but because they are separate to both, they are run almost autonomously. They are very isolated. They struggle with that isolation, even though they are a powerful financial hub. In terms of goods and services and immigration, they really struggle on those islands, and as a result, quality of life is not quite as good as it could be. Guernsey, Sark and Guernsey are part of the United Kingdom, and they have been for a very, very long time. Once part of France, but obviously that has changed. They predominantly speak English on the islands, a little bit of French and some other languages as well. The three islands have a combined population of 172,000. That could be a lot higher if they had different rules and regulations in regards to home ownership. That really restricts population growth. But if we're given the opportunity to developed land on Sark, potentially that could go up to around 200,000 in the future in a short period of time. The island covers an area of 189 square kilometres, which is a decent size, very densely populated, the islands, especially Jersey, Guernsey as well, and there's potential there for more growth on Sark and Guernsey as well if we link them all up. And people obviously could work in France and commute and work in Jersey. The island specialises in financial services and thus have a high economic output per capita. Jersey specialises in tax management and advice. Read into that what you will. I'll put some links in the description below if you want to read up more on how Jersey and Guernsey specialises in this tax management system, as it were. But the majority of people who work and operate on the island of Jersey and Guernsey and Sark are good, honest people. They have a very high income, and they also have high levels of disposable income, just basically because the main sort of output from the island is financial services. Guernsey and Jersey joined the United Kingdom in 1204. So why build a tunnel? Is this a good idea? Can we make money doing it? Is it even feasible? Well, we built the Channel Tunnel. The geology is not massively different from that. There's definitely potential for building a tunnel. It's going to be a lot more cost effective than building a bridge, but there are also lots of other benefits that would in the long term lead to quite a decent financial return. It would significantly reduce passenger and freight transportation times. So if you could get your Jersey potatoes or your Jersey beef or lamb to mainland France, or even get it to mainland France and then transport it to England, you know, that's going to be worth a lot more money if you can do it at regular intervals and much quicker. It allows the local economy to support itself better, and takes reliance away from ships and airplanes, which obviously are a lot more expensive and some are particularly slow. The islands are somewhat isolated from the UK and France, thus suffer economically due to this. Basically, the cost of everything on the island is a lot more than what it is in France, because the markup and the transportation costs all add to that. If we were using electric pods or freight pods, that would significantly reduce both time and costs. Thus, it opens up opportunities for more businesses. It allowed Jersey and Guernsey to import goods 24/7 during times of adverse weather. The seas around the Channel Islands do get very rough at certain parts of the year, sort of between October and the end of February. Very high winds. They do sometimes get very large amounts of snowfall, even apparently up to 5 foot in some cases over the course of a week. So if they could transport goods underground, it's obviously not going to be affected by the environment that much. Obviously they have to distribute it from the distribution centres, but it would certainly make things 10 times easier and reduce the unit cost of most goods on the island and create many new jobs. A lot of goods could be imported from France and sold in Guernsey and Jersey and Sark. Thus, the overall cost of goods and the supply of goods would go up. The cost of goods would fall because of supply and demand. For its size, the island is a financial powerhouse. Absolutely huge number of financial firms operating in Guernsey and Jersey. They have a large reach across the world and specialise in tax management. They also have access to funds from other companies that they work in partnership. So making this project happen would be relatively easy to do. And if it's relatively easy to do and there's good reasons to do it, then why not build a tunnel? We might as well do it. It certainly helps the Boring Company with a bit more exposure. Due to the strict house ownership rules, it's very difficult to live or work in Jersey or Guernsey. So the rules are as follows. If you have never lived on the island, if you were not born on the island, if you have a citizenship of another country and you are not a citizen of the UK, then you can rent property on the island. You can't buy it. And you are restricted to what property you can rent And also you have to wait 10 years before you can buy a house or rent a large property. It's quite restrictive, and it's very detrimental to finding the right labour to do things. There's a lot of hotels in the area, and finding people to work in those hotels is difficult because there's just not the right people there to do those jobs. It would significantly reduce the amount of greenhouse gases emitted compared to air travel. Obviously, quite a lot of stuff comes in through the airport in Jersey. If we could move to electronic pods to transport people and goods, that is going to reduce the amount of greenhouse gases considerably. Opens up 1,000 acres of land on the island of Sark for redevelopment. There's currently around 480 people that live on the island of Sark. That's in decline. People don't really want to work or live on Sark because there are no facilities there. By linking up Guernsey and Jersey, you have all the facilities on those islands, plus on France as well. So it would suddenly make Sark a very interesting and beautiful place to live. That would open up all the land there for residential, commercial development, and thus potentially drive some economic growth in that area. And it would be a lovely place. Apparently the island of Sark is possibly the most beautiful island in the whole of Europe in terms of just how scenic and untouched it is. So that would definitely be an interesting opportunity. Obviously, we won't want people to ruin the island by building everywhere and anywhere, but it done in a restrained way, that would be really beautiful. So what I've put together a bit of a plan. It's nothing too serious, but I think it just gives a good outline as to how much this is going to cost, what is required to build it, and how it's going to be built, what methods. So this is a mammoth project and thus necessitates multiple site teams on various islands and will require 8 tunnel boring machines manned by 8 teams run concurrently. So my plan is for all 8 tunnel boring machines to start around the same period of time. So maybe every let's say every week we would launch a new tunnel boring machines, and then we would run them all concurrently from the individual sites. They would run from one launch pit to the entry shaft, and they would be removed and maybe used on other projects. But it would require 8 tunnel boring machines because we don't want to be waiting around and reusing machines. We want to get this project done in record time without much delay. The main starting point would be Fort George in Guernsey, so it would be slightly to the west of Fort George. We'd have one TBM launch pit, 32 foot diameter and 90 foot deep. Probably construct that using precast concrete segments. I think that would be probably the best method. Potentially we could use sheet piles as well. It depends what the ground. I'd imagine the ground would be quite rocky in that area, so we'd have to use certainly quite a reasonable amount of blasting, but it's still very feasible to use those methods. Guernsey and Sark, we'd have one TBM entry shaft, again 32 foot diameter, 200 foot deep. The reason that it's so deep is because we're going from the island of Sark to the island of Jersey. Sark is a small island. We don't have a good run up on that island in terms of getting underneath the seabed, so we're going to have to start very deep and at an angle so that we can get under the seabed into some stable strata for this tunnel. Basically all the same again, it's around 50, 60, 70 foot deep in most places, and that enables us again to get underneath the seabed. There'll be lots of entry shafts which again they will literally all start concurrently construction, and hopefully we'd be able to use the TBMs around about the same period of time. Maybe launch a TBM every week or every sort of 5 days if possible, and then we've got the most overlap in our program there. So this is a map of the area. As you can see, Guernsey is there top left. That is the island of Sark there. Lavadi is the capital of the island, I presume. We're then going from Sark south east to Jersey. We're going across the island of Jersey via a tunnel, and then we're going towards the west into France, the shortest possible distance we can do it in. I mean, I did think about possibly doing the tunnel further south, but it doesn't make any sense to add the cost there, to add an extra 150 million when we can just simply link it up the shortest possible. There's no real extra benefit from linking it up to near an airport or near a train station when the roads in this region of France are so good anyway. As you can see here, this is the actual path of the tunnels that we're going to. They're dual tunnels, obviously. They start here on the left hand side. As you can see, there's the entry shaft is fairly inland. We then have an exit shaft and an entry shaft here on the island, and then we go down here to Jersey and then across the pond to France here. As you can see, this area of France is got plenty of roads, and there's plenty of land here to berth our TBM. So there's good links for potential freight and passengers to get into and out of the tunnel distances. So just to give you an example of the distances between the islands, to Guernsey to Sark, that's 12 point, well, let's say in miles, 7.84 miles. Guernsey to Sark. From Sark to Jersey is just under 15 miles. To go across the island of Jersey is 8.86 miles. And then Jersey to France, which is the main tunnel, is 34.9 miles, just under 35 miles. These are very doable distances. It's not an excessively long route. That last route is around about the same as the Washington DC to Baltimore tunnel, just slightly under that. So if we could have multiple TBMs on this project, we could quite easily finish it within 2.5, 3 years. So all in all, that's 66.6 miles of tunnels. Some ramps in there as well, but I'll explain that in a minute. So here's our overall overplan of where the tunnels are going to run and in what direction. I did consider avoiding the island of Sark and just going straight from Guernsey to Jersey, but because it's so nearby and there's so much potential on the island of Sark, I just thought, you know what, why not link it up? And they have also been talking about linking up Sark in the news articles, so it makes sense. And that land on the island of Sark could be redeveloped. So, to get into and out of the system, we're going to require a lot of ramps. The type of ramps that we use are dependent on the depth of the tunnel. Where possible, I've used traditional excavation methods, either sheet piling or CFA piles. But on the island of Sark, because we've got a short run up and we've had to use very deep shafts, the only real way we can do that is to use tunneled ramps and to build those using pipe jacking methods, and just to save money in general. I've done that at a 1 in 4 gradient. I think 1 in 4 to 1 in 5 is about right in terms of pods coming up and down the ramps. We don't want excessive acceleration or deacceleration when we're going up and down these ramps. Yeah. So obviously we need four access ramps at some places, because we've got vehicles coming from one island and coming off, so they're heading east to west, and then we've got vehicles heading west to east, so they'll be coming off at a different point. So you need 2 ingress ramps and 2 egress ramps. This is the diagram of our tunnel cross section. It's going to be exactly the same as for the Hawthorne test tunnel near enough, which I think the internal diameter is around 12 foot, let's say around 12 foot 3 inches. If you want that in in metric, that's 3.7 meters or 3,720 millimeters, which is a good distance. Model X fits in there very nicely. There's definitely the potential for developing a freight pod. The freight pod would have a wind deflector on the front. Other than that, it just would be a skateboard with multiple electric motors, possibly up to 10 wheels, maybe in some form of train format where each skateboard is joined up to the preceding skateboard. They would have a top speed of around 80 to 85 miles per hour. They don't need to go that fast. It's more about moving as much produce as possible at any one time. So we'd want quite long, short vehicles. What we would do is the goods that are transported from France to Guernsey and Jersey would be put on pallets. The pallets would be loaded up side by side, and then it would be dropped onto the skateboard, and then it would just be taken into the tunnel. It's all underground. It's not going to be affected by adverse weather, and it's going to be taken straight through to an inland port where it can then be distributed via electric trucks. Project costs. So it's going to be in our interest to build TBM specific for this project. I don't think it's going to be cost effective to bring TBMs from California. I think it might be better to manufacture them in England and then use them on this project, and then maybe potentially use them on another European project like the CERN Hydrogen Collider. They cost about £18 million each per TBM. So all in all, it's £144 million. Site setup and logistic costs. Obviously, these are remote places. There's going to need to be actual residential accommodation for all the workers, mess halls. There might need to be medical facilities built as well. There might need to be a port built at Sark for all the materials. There might need to be a concrete batching plant built for the concrete segments and any concrete that we use on the sites. So I've put 55 million in for that. Tunnel construction, I've got down 9.9 million per mile. All in all, that equals 660 million pounds. Ramp construction is 47 million. There's some of those ramps are obviously via pipe jacking. Because they're going to be longer ramps, they're going to cost more, but all in all, it's around 47. Vent shaft construction, we probably need 15 vent shafts for this particular job. I've got 1.2 million per vent shaft. All in all, that's 18 million pounds. Launch pit construction. Some of the little launch pits, the entry shafts are relatively shallow. Some are quite deep. The average of that is around 3.7 million per shaft. Most of the shafts are closer to 2.93 million. So that all in all, that adds up to about 22 million pounds. We have also the need for passenger pods. I've put down 500 here. That might be a bit excessive, that actually. We can always they can be phased in. The system doesn't need to start with 500 passenger pods. We could start with 300 and work our way up, but the cost of 500 passenger pods is 33 million or 66,000 pounds per pod. 200 freight pods is 16.4 million. Inland freight port construction. There'll be an area where we can unload our pallets inland, a covered area, possibly in some kind of warehouse. That would cost around £10 million. We're going to need somewhere as well also for charging our pods. Pods are going to be need to be charged fairly regularly and at a high amperage and voltage. So we're going to need those on each of the islands, possibly one in Guernsey, one in Jersey and one in France near the tunnel entrance. The cost of that would be 12.6 million. And then we're talking, dozens of charger bays there as well. So it's quite a considerable setup. Above ground roads, we're going to need around 2.8 miles. Most of that will be on the island of Sark to link up the port to connect the rest of the island to the tunnels. That's a 9 million brick factory. If we're going to convert the spoil into bricks and then sell those bricks, we're going to need some kind of facility that can process the bricks almost as fast as the spoil is arriving, so it's going to be quite considerable. I've got 5.5 million. Overall, the total cost for all that work is 1 billion, over 1 billion pounds, 1.032 billion. In dollar terms, that is 1.269 billion, which is quite a considerable amount of money, but as you can imagine, the payback on that is going to be quite considerable. So I've put down 120 meters per day as the potential average for boring a tunnel. As you can see, the minimum amount of time that we're going to spend digging tunnels is 468 days. There is other works that need to be done inside those tunnels after that has been completed, in terms of installing the concrete shelves, in terms of installing the ventilation system and any other types of CCTV, power systems, communication systems. So they're going to be adding on top of that. We're talking around 2.5 to 3 years in all to complete that project. Tunneled ramp. So the traditional ramps can be constructed using excavators. That you could use as many excavators as you need if you need to speed that up. I think 10 to 12 weeks is quite pessimistic, really. I think it could be done in maybe 8 to 9 weeks, but rather aim low and go high, in my opinion. Tunnel ramps by pipe jacking, they're going to be quite a bit longer than the traditional ramps, so but obviously you're using mechanised equipment to do that, so and you're excavating a lot less material as well, so 7 to 8 weeks. Launch pits, some are a lot deeper than others, some are close to 200 foot deep, so they will obviously take a lot more time to construct, but I've got 7 to 14 weeks approximately on that. So what are my thoughts at the end of the day? I am incredibly bullish on this project. It's a serious project. This is no pipe dream. It probably will happen in some form or the other. I think the people of Jersey and Guernsey desperately want this to happen. They desperately want their islands to progress, to reduce the cost of goods on the island, to improve access for tourists. There's a lot of benefits to building this, and everyone on the island, there'll be no one losing out because of this, other than maybe the people that deliver goods via freight boats to the island. So all in all, it's going to work out beautifully for everyone on the island. It will easily double the Channel Islands' current GDP of £7 billion. Easily, we're talking maybe closer to 18-20 billion by the end of 2040. The Boeing company should tender for this job and put the other bidders to shame. People are going to tender for this job and put in bids of 2 to 3 to 4 billion pounds, and then when they actually build it, it'll probably come in around 5 billion. So the Boeing company could definitely undercut everyone on this job and still make a good profit, and they also would improve the how they are viewed across the world, their reputation, by getting this done on time, on budget, and to high quality. And it doesn't just stop here with this project. Maybe there are other projects that could be completed on the island. Maybe a tunnel ring road, maybe some other tunnels linking the islands. It's potentially a route to more money in the long term. The 1.0 is 1.03 now. 1.03 billion construction cost would be repaid in under 10 years. I believe with the right toll fares and the right pod fares, this can easily be repaid in under 10 years if they are reasonably aggressive with the prices they choose to charge people, especially freight providers. If they can offer a very fast service and a reasonable value, then people are definitely going to use it. Living in France and working in Jersey will offer an exciting opportunity, a really excellent opportunity, in terms of reducing the cost of owning a house, also reducing the amount of money they're spending on food. It will be reduced significantly if they're living in France and working in Jersey. So it works out for everyone, and certain people may want to stay on the island, other people may want to work on the island, maybe new people but live in France. So there's something there for everyone, and it's a fantastic opportunity for all those concerned, especially the Boeing company. So that's an excellent picture of Jersey. What a beautiful place it is. It's pretty much like this all over the islands, really. The beaches are almost untouched. It's some of the most beautiful in Europe. Thank you for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe. Join me on Discord, Twitter and Instagram. Tell me what you think in the comments below about this proposal. Is it a good idea? Should the Boeing company get involved, or is this going to be a terrible idea and destroy the reputation of the Boeing company? Tell me what you think. You think we need tunnels on the Channel Islands? Also, thank you to all my Patreons. You know who you are. And thank you to my newest Patreon, Jim Knapp. That's really kind of you to make a donation to the channel. Thank you for watching, everyone. Really appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in. And hopefully you'll tune in next week as well for our next episode. So what I want to say is thanks for watching. And remember, guys, don't be boring. Goodbye. See you soon.